Firstly, I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we gather and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to the Governance Committee meeting today, the 17th of May 2023. I declare this meeting open at 9:53 a.m. and would like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. We're going to move on to attendance and leaves of absence. Please be advised that this meeting, Council previously approved a leave of absence for Councillor Brady at the City Governance meeting held on the 19th of April 2023, and Councillor Karansky is joining us via Teams today. We'll move on to any conflicts of interest. I don't know of any conflicts today. Does anybody have one? No, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the reports. We're going to get straight into it. We're going to go to the confidential report, which is 6.1. It is the, or 5.1, but 6.1 in the confidential. The regional collaboration. I believe Ms Smith will be talking, but first I note that 5.1, 6.1 confidential is confidential. A proposed resolution to move that matter displayed on the screen. Do any councillors wish to move this item into confidential? No? Okay, we don't have to. Okay, Ms Smith, I hand it over to you, reminding you that we haven't moved into confidential. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. The report before you provides an annual assessment of council's membership of two peak bodies, that being LGAQ and CommSec. It's important to know in reviewing the report that LGAQ, the Local Government Association of Queensland, assists in advocacy priorities that have statewide impacts, and CommSec, the Council of Mayors for South East Queensland, assists with objectives which have an impact on the South East Queensland region. In terms of an annual assessment, the CEO of LGAQ will be meeting and providing an update with our Mayor and CEO on the 12th of July, and we'll be able to provide details of that in a briefing post then. And today, in terms of the CommSec, we have the CEO from CommSec, Scott Smith, here, and he's accompanied by Matthew Hendry, who is the Advocacy and Engagement Manager at CommSec. Scott has a presentation for you today, and we'll be happy to answer any questions should you have any post.
Excuse me, Beck, with it being in confidential, can you determine whether the presentation is confidential or not? Because we have not moved into confidential. Otherwise, we're just receiving. We'd go straight to the report's recommendations.
We're good.
You're good to go through the presentation? Okay, yep. Over to you. And welcome to Scott and Matthew.
Thank you, Chair. Get some slides up there, hopefully. There we go. All right. Thanks, councillors, and thanks for having us back. I'll go through a quick update, try and get through this, have time for questions, but feel free to ask me as we go through. Just a couple of things to cover in terms of where we're at, what we've been doing, and where our priorities are at the moment, and what activities are underway. So just as in terms of highlights for engagement, so we have been engaging with state and federal government again. Last year we did our first state engagement delegation to Parliament House. We're planning our second one at the moment, which is underway for planning, which is a few logistics around Parliament being renovated at the moment, so we're working through that, but it will be in the second half of the year. We'll be there. Canberra delegations, we're still working on our first one to get down there post-budget. In terms of City Deal engagement, we had our first leadership meeting this year with Minister King, Deputy Premier, in January. We're underway, and I'll talk a little bit more later about the City Deal, but we're underway with implementation planning, and I'm told the sign-off of that is imminent. We have agreed to just do a soft launch of that rather than try and get the leaders together. which is challenging across 3 tiers of government, so we don't want to hold things up. Again, we've got ongoing activities around our working groups, regional planning area, our leveraging activities, the waste working group, collaborating on those regional outcomes, and we've been doing some industry showcases, and we'll do more with Whiskero, which I'll talk about a little bit later. In terms of, whoa, that really jumped forward there. What's going on there? Sorry, work with technology. That jumped forward about 14 slides. Sensitive. Yeah. I mean, I told you I'd go through quick, but I didn't think it'd be that quick. So you will recall we went on our first international mission since COVID earlier in the year. The Mayor attended, as well as the acting Chief of Staff, along with, we had 9 mayors in total and 1 councillor, so 10 of our 11 councils represented. Went to San Francisco, Vancouver and LA region, and the 4 kind of areas that we focused on, and the reason we went there were around those 4 areas. Things that we could learn from these cities, and activities we undertook, and learnings and ongoing, and I'll talk about the outcomes of that, ongoing outcomes that we can achieve as a result of that trip. So a very productive trip, very worthwhile. We've learned a lot, and we're continuing to engage with other stakeholders locally to share those experiences, including the state government around the Olympic transport journey, which was a big part of it. Okay, there we go. So a few highlights out of that. So we launched, when we were in San Francisco, a world first in terms of an opportunity white paper around the autonomous air mobility, which is the work we're doing with Whiskero. We saw their vehicle fly at an airport, which is always good when we're out there trying to engage community around these sort of technologies. When we've seen it, touched it, felt it, we can kind of advocate for it and say it's real. This is not a fantasy thing, it actually works. We saw the production vehicle that will go into production and be ultimately flying in late this decade, and which massive step up from the technology. When we went to Vancouver, it's a long-running engagement we've had with Metro Vancouver, or the regional group over there. Slightly different organisation in that they own all the waste facilities and transport management, etc., but they still have a core advocacy role like we do. We've had a long-running relationship with them, and we formalised that when we were over there in a statement of intent. They'll have a delegation coming over to the Asia Pacific City Summit later this year, and we'll look to extend that probably into an MOU. We've got ongoing collaboration with groups. We've got a first one with planners, about 30 planners from across Vancouver and our region, meeting soon virtually, and we'll do the same for transport, economic development and a number of other areas, waste in particular, because Vancouver's very advanced, been on the waste journey, circular economy for many years. Equally in LA, we met with quite a number of people, including the Mayor's office there, and you'd be aware they're the precursor Olympics to us in 2028. Very similar transport journey and advocacy journey they've been on in terms of the outcomes they want out of 28. We are now in discussions with them about formalising a relationship again so we can collaborate, working with our state and federal government to learn a lot. I guess the takeaway I would have for people, and I've said this to our state reps, they're the only other city in the history of the Olympics to have an 11-year runway like us. And when they're frank and honest with themselves, they've pretty much stuffed that and missed the opportunity, and I don't think they'd mind me saying that. Not to say they won't get anything out of it, they will get a significant outcome out of it, but they probably haven't taken full advantage of the 11 years. And so it's a good lesson for us as we're 9 years out. And again, lots of other areas we looked at across mobility and games legacy, investment, attraction, regional economic development. So a really good trip for everyone, and ongoing activities. Oh, there we are. Obviously, one of our core remits and things that we really angle and focus on is regional planning and connectivity. So a lot of things happening in there. I can get the slides to go. There we go. So just a quick capture out of that trip from North America. Lots of learnings. As I said, we're sharing with a lot of government stakeholders. Arup, who helped us on that trip, are doing a thought leadership piece. I won't go too much into it, but quickly a tale of two cities. So Vancouver 2010 Winter Games hosts and LA 84 and now 28. Vastly different lessons out of that. Vancouver at over 50% public transport utilisation as a result of theirs. LA 0 public transport utilisation out of 84 and aiming to increase that through 28. So there's a good story there. We'll continue to leverage off that. We had the public forum the state ran on the Legacy Forum in March. We were well represented there and pushed very hard to make sure that connectivity stayed on the agenda because it was dropping off, and obviously that's a key part for us. Lots happening in the regional plan review, which I'll cover a bit more, and the infrastructure supplement. So a lot of work we're doing with state government, TMR and planning to try and make sure that our priorities get in there, and recently we've been engaging with the state quite a bit, and we've had board approval last week to continue that engagement to look at our priorities across regional mobility. So rather than just people movement, we need freight and active and other things. So we're doing a body of work we're shaping up with state government and other stakeholders on how best to have a regional view of what our priorities are at a regional level so we can advocate to get those delivered. So more to come from that as we flesh that out with the state. Yeah, we engaged KPMG last week. We've had, last year, sorry, we've had really productive conversations and engagements with TMR around how to make sure that we get transport planning matching growth planning, and that's been obviously one of our key advocacy items for many years. I would say we are getting very positive traction, probably the most positive I've seen in my time, and a lot happening even through the regional plan already out of those actions of that. So in terms of that, you know, a couple of things that we've achieved and some better data sharing across those stakeholders, councils and TMR and the planning group around making sure that the transport assumptions match the growth assumptions so that transport investment matches growth. There's a whole new transport model that TMR have developed that is about embedding those connections between transport and growth, and I know that's something that we're all very keen to see, that transport infrastructure investment matches our growth assumptions. And there's, as part of the regional plan review, the state government's put out a request for an update of council's priorities, region shaping projects. If you look at the Connect chapter in the regional plan, there's a whole list of region shaping infrastructure projects that make that. They're refreshing that as part of this update, so that's something we're collaborating with them on to make sure that we're all across it, everyone's on the same page before the plan gets published. Premier's Roundtable happened again in March. Lord Mayor and we were represented there on behalf of the region. LGAQ was as well. This is a vexed issue. Obviously, we're still trying. Everyone's struggling with this. It's no easy answer, but a lot of goodwill and activities trying to get this solved. A big part for us out of the last year's summit was part of this initiative we've been aiming for, which is around community education. We got commitment out of the state to fund that work. Really at the heart of it, this is a challenge I've talked to you about before, which is, you know, we can deal with growth, but the pushback from the public around the negative side of growth causes you all grief, and you know, everyone points the finger at local government. This is a collaborative approach, so state, federal and other stakeholders are shared in their view that we need growth to accommodate the challenges of homelessness and people's connection to jobs, etc. So it's a piece that we're trying to do collaboratively to just bring the community awareness of the planning regime and why growth happens and the positives out of that. So we'll continue to work on that. It's early days yet, but we've at least got some funding commitment to help us with that. I won't go through this in detail, but on the right there, the key areas, the SEQ regional plan update, which is short and sharp, I would say. It will be finished and finalised and published by September this year, which means it'll be out to public consultation in July, August. Yeah, Councillor?
Thanks, through the Chair. How much say do we really have in that SEQ regional plan? It's a massive thing for my area, and look, it's how much say do we actually have if I want res rural blocks to come back for this meeting there? How much say do we actually have in this?
I would say in this one, compared to what I'd call a traditional regional plan writing, not a lot, because it's a short and sharp. So they're pretty much just trying to reset the dials of growth assumptions and what's happened, because it's been a while since the last version was released. So this is not a whole rewrite. This is just a tinkering with the dials of growth to make sure that we've got the right outcomes in the right place, and those things on the right, trying to align, employment centres and growth of that. I don't see that there will be any massive greenfield or massive changes to urban footprint or any of that. It's just tinkering with areas that, there's just data's out of date. The population shift has changed post-COVID. We need to reset a few of these levers. So yeah, it's not in this one, won't be a big chance for that. In a traditional, when we start from scratch, councils get a massive input into that, as do the public and development industry.
So if we're showing, so if we're showing demand that we want res rural blocks, to me that's not a big shift. That is a change of the dial to say the supply's there.
Yeah, I mean, again, I would think that's something through your planning scheme, and there's probably capability in the regional plan as it stands. There's not many levers there, but it's not a massive regional plan thing unless you're opening up new areas of urban footprint. So yeah, without knowing the specifics. And one on the bottom there that's really, I know, important, and your mayor has been advocating very strongly with the full support of our board, is the state infrastructure charges review, which is a little bit through the regional plan review, but there's a whole other activity happening with the state government on this. We're just kicked off a body of work with LGAQ to look at data to support the challenge that we all face as local government of this broadening gap between what it costs to deliver the infrastructure and what we get in charges. And again, your mayor has been very strong on this, and as I said, has the full support of our board to keep pushing that. We're working hard with LGAQ and the state to try and resolve this. Again, no easy fix in a housing crisis, but we're committed to try and drive this outcome. So we'll continue to work on that. Sorry, there we go. Right, waste. Another one that your council's been heavily involved in. So we are well and truly underway with our activities of our PMO, which is the group funded in my office by the state to roll out our waste plan. We're well into a rhythm of our governance process. The first funding projects that have been put forward and through that process include your MRF with your sub-regional alliance, as well as one at Sunny Coast. We are now into funding approval for food and organic rollout in various councils. Those projects, the two MRFs, are well and truly through that. They're in the final stages of state government, governor and council sign-off, as well as tied into the city deal because they're partially funded through that. So they've all but been approved except for that last step. So we're just waiting on that to be finalised, and then the money will flow. I think that's about 34 million for the SRA for your MRF here out of state and federal government. And as I said, now our focus is moving beyond recycling onto food and organics, and we have a number of councils leading the charge on that in terms of rolling out various either green organics or food and green organics. We're still working with the state on driving a behaviour change outcome, which a program across the state, which will then be supported by some funding to do localised for councils when they roll out food and organics. We've got a draft framework for the funding of food and organics. So again, all of this is about diverting that money from state jobs and recycling fund into helping councils move away from landfill through the implementation of our waste plan. We've got a negotiated funding envelope there that we're waiting to finalise through the government approval process, but it's what I'd consider a generous funding envelope to allow councils to roll out food and organics, significantly higher than any other state across the country, and something that will see us achieve the outcomes of that plan through food and organics. So a really positive outcome. And as I said, more importantly, we're into a good rhythm now of getting the waste plan rolling and councils delivering those outcomes with our support. So it's a really positive. I won't labour on this. This is, again, kind of the core of why we're doing this, to make sure that we keep the cost down for ratepayers while achieving the outcomes of that, collaborating across councils, which obviously your council's doing with the Sub-Regional Alliance, creating jobs, getting those outcomes. Whoop. Right, Resilient Rivers catchment investment work that we're doing, again in Logan and Scenic Rim has been core to this. in Upper Logan, Lower Brisbane, Oxley Creek projects, but we are more importantly stepping back from this at a more strategic level, learning from the waste plan. We collaborated very strongly with state government and got a really solid outcome out of that. The same part of the department works in this space supporting Resilient Rivers, so we're doing a joint project which we went out to tender on, and Arup won that, and we're just kicking that off, which is basically a refresh of what we do in Resilient Rivers and catchment management to make sure we're doing the right thing. But with city deal money flowing through there, we want to make sure that that's allocated appropriately and managed appropriately, but also we're looking to attract external private corporate money so that we can get better outcomes for everyone on the ground in the catchments. So that work's kicked off, but Resilient Rivers continues to motor along and get the positive outcomes that we've been achieving, including in the Logan area. Economic and workforce enablement, just quickly. So again, this WISC work we've been doing with the autonomous air mobility, it's not a big part of what we do. It's on the side there as just another economic outcome that came out of 2032, but an exciting one when you look at the global scale of this and the economic dollars that come with this and are predicted to come out of this. You know, job opportunities, tourism, other outcomes for our region. So we're working with WISC. They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but our involvement in this is to engage with the community about this. Again, this council has been very advanced with the wing technology and your community engagement on that, and what I'd see as a great success. So we're learning off that. Thankfully, someone who used to work for Wing now works for WISC, so we're learning off that. And again, it's about community acceptance that when this comes, you know, we've engaged, we understand it. There's another body of work we'll be doing around the planning aspects of this, because these vehicles have to land somewhere. They're not as small as a drone delivering coffee, so we need to think a bit more about where they land, what impact that has on the community, and again, you'll be at the end of that if we get it wrong. So we're trying to lead the charge on that, not leave it to state or federal government to then kind of enforce on you. So we're working and trying to lead the way to make sure that we have a local government friendly outcome that suits our community, but also delivers the economic outcomes that WISC and other AAM providers will provide. And finally, the city deal and Olympics, so leveraging 2032. So a lot of work been happening in this to make sure that, again, we get the outcomes out of 2032 that we're all after around transport and economic outcomes. So we've engaged with Andrew Liveris as the OCOG chair. We've engaged with Cindy Hook as the CEO. We'll get her to a future board meeting. We had Graham Frayne, who's now the CEO of the Brisbane 2032 Coordination Office in the Premier's Department, who's basically make sure that we deliver all the infrastructure we need before the games, before the organising committee takes it over. Graham's had some time working in local government, but he's certainly been along our journey from the start of the game, so he understands what we're trying to achieve better than anyone. Positive engagement at the board meeting. We'll look to probably get him as a standing item because it's important we work with him. We have a draft of our leveraging plan, which has got 5 key initiatives we're targeting. About 4 of those are already underway in various ways and forms, and event attraction is probably the one we haven't nailed yet, but we're still working on it. But we've got initiatives there around transport, sustainability, preventative health, economic investment attraction. So we're doing stuff on all of those. So yeah, that report will be going through the working group and board approval soon. Yep. Okay, there we go. City deal. So I mentioned before we are imminent. I use that word loosely, imminent on the sign-off of the implementation plan. I do know that it's been through federal government approval. We're waiting on state government approval. We are in the background with officers and the bureaucracy and the administrative processes well and truly advanced, ready to go. We will look to launch this as soon as we can, and with the launch we will launch the livability guidelines, livability fund guidelines. You'll remember that. It's about 250 million across the region of funding, local, state and federal funding. That's the allocation to Logan, which is based on the size of your council and equal contribution across the 3 tiers. Guidelines are drafted. We're getting those reviewed at the moment. There's a broader range of activities that these can be used for. And we're looking to kick this off as soon as we can. And your next financial year budget is, we've already been talking to the Mayor and CEO's office about making sure that any projects you want funded under this, you start funding next financial year, because that's kind of the goal, is to get these things underway as soon as we can. They have to be delivered by the end of 27, 28. We're still negotiating that with state government, but it's, you know, it's not a long running thing. We don't want to wait for years for this stuff to start rolling out to your communities. We want these projects delivered quickly. So that's something we'll lead off with. Probably also lead off with waste and resilient rivers as two other things. And again, your MRF is funded partially under that. So a few good announcements out of that. So once that happens, there's a whole heap of other projects that we'll just start working with state and federal government on funding agreements and getting them moving. But we're really committed to get the Livability Fund and those projects underway. And finally, our local government forum. We go annually. Our date, I hope everyone's got a date claimer. If you haven't, we'll make sure that you do. 25th of August, but pencil it in your diary. Probably mid-afternoon. We're still finalising a location. It'll be in Brisbane somewhere, just centrally for the region to come together. It's an opportunity again for you to collaborate, engage with other councillors from around your region, learn from what their challenges are, but also hear from some keynote speakers and you know, have a generally good conversation about what our priorities are and learn from each other. So save the date for that, and hopefully you can make it. It's always a good day. And that's me.
Thank you, Scott. That was very informative, and it looks like Logan's right in there and involved in most things. Councillors, do I have any questions at all? None? Beck?
The Mayor.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to make one comment in relation to the City Deals program. If you want to look at the verification of whether council gets it's worthwhile participating in the council mayors, you only have to look at the figures in that section. Clearly, being in council mayors, we are certainly well in front compared to, say, someone like Gold Coast who didn't want to participate. They don't get that money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for being careful, because we are not in confidential. Becca, are we able to get that PowerPoint sent to the councillors at all?
Yes, that would be fine.
Awesome. Okay, councillors, we're just going to table, we have to table the report that we've just seen. On the board, there is a motion on the board with regards to that presentation. Thank you. Councillor Wilcox has moved that.
Sorry, through the chair, because we didn't go into confidential, we would be looking to remove one of the pages with regard to the figures listed on the City Deal before we table the presentation.
Okay, hang on a moment. Do we need to edit that? That was on the screen, Beck.
Oh, so, sorry, through the chair, tabled as a confidential attachment, sorry.
Thank you very much. So Councillor Wilcox has passed that. Do I need a seconder? No? All those in favour, please raise your hand. Excellent, that has been carried. Thank you very much. And then we'll have a motion on the board very shortly. While the girls are getting that up, thank you very much, Scott and Matthew, that's sitting there.
Thank you very
somewhere.
much, councillors.
No worries. It's always good to get an update. We have a motion on the board. Do I have a mover for this? Mayor Power has moved it. Councillor Hall has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. That has been carried. Councillor Karansky, I don't see you at all, so are you good? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. We're going to be moving on now to 5.2, the quarterly third quarter, digital transformation program update. I note that this is a confidential report and we have attachments. Does anybody wish to move into confidential? No? Okay. Ms Kay, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, councillors. Report 5.2 is the Q3 digital transformation update. You'll note from the report that a number of deliverables have been achieved in the last quarter, and just to remind you, our Tech One modernisation project has been closed, and we're currently preparing a closeout report with regard to that project. That's important because that'll allow us to document and capture lessons learned and apply those as we roll out other projects. Our pathway upgrade has been implemented for CECE branch, and the discovery work and improvements that have been captured from that first implementation can now be applied to finance, DA and ED&S. So you get that really nice beneficial iterative rollout occurring as we move that project through other branches. Our Microsoft 365 Teams calling has been implemented, reducing our hardware costs. Our cybersecurity uplift continues, and we've been able to remediate around 98% of key vulnerabilities. And with regard to EAMS, we're currently building our solution for water. So just very briefly, what now and what next? There's been considerable effort in building a program team that is dynamic and flexible, and the reason this is important is that these types of projects are not fixed or linear in their delivery. You can already see that we've identified 2 significant improvement opportunities, and that is around our contract management and ledgers as well. My personal opinion is that there are more customer and business benefits that we can generate out of these projects. So I've actually engaged a specialist firm that focuses on, I guess, squeezing as much juice out of these initiatives as possible. So with that in mind, I've actually taken the opportunity to slow down some of the deliverables in these projects. The reason for this is that while we're looking at the benefits work, we will reduce our financial burn rate. We can review our scopes, review how we're sequencing the projects from a delivery perspective, and it allows us some additional time as well to do the business readiness activities that we may be a little light on when we first implemented these projects. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kay. Councillors, is there any questions at all? No? We'll just get the motion up on the board for us to pass. The motion is now displayed. I have Councillor Bannon to pass the motion, Councillor Lane as a seconder. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried. Councillor Clancy has passed that as well. Thank you very much, Kay. I believe we've got another report by yourself, 5.3, Q3 Operational Plan Report. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The operational report for Q3 has just a couple of statistics in it. So just as a reminder, we have 73 projects within the operational plan. Our health check, which is completed plus on-track projects, is at 92%, and this is commensurate with the same quarter last year. Our projects completed are 11, our projects on track are 56, and our projects under monitor are 6. Of those 6 projects that are being monitored, there are remediation actions in the report. 4 of those are capital-related projects. I do note that our projects, the way that we're delivering them at the moment, are very back-end loaded towards the end of the financial year, and in a lot of instances there's very valid reasons for this. However, I think there's opportunities that we can explore around how we're delivering our projects and the benefits that these projects deliver. You may remember that in December our end-to-end project management processes were endorsed and rolled out across our organisation. So as we tie our operational planning into our business planning, what we're going to be doing is working with every branch, and their top 2 projects we'll be putting through our project management processes. That will allow us, I think, to focus more on delivery and identifying, measuring and realising benefits. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Kay. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick ones. Could I Regarding the Logan Listen survey, would you know how often is that done? Is that every year or is that twice a year? Sorry, once every 2 years?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years. Okay. All right. I might touch base. That's your that's through your branch, is
That
it?
is correct.
Yes, I might touch base with you on that one moving forward.
Yep.
And the other one is the citywide rebrand project. Could you maybe see if I can get some information on an update on how that's travelling? Because we haven't heard much about that for a while, but I'm seeing things happening across the city. So if you could just pass that through to the branch to maybe just provide me with an update, that'd be appreciated.
I'll get you some further information. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stamp. Is there any further questions? The girl's going to display a motion on the board. Is there anybody to receive that report? Councillor Raven has moved it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Lane. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And Councillor Quincy has voted in favour. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any general business for Kay today? Do you have any general business for us?
Nothing today, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Councillors, we're going to move on to item 5.4, the Local Infrastructure Program, May 2023. Could I ask Ms Carolyn Bugg, the Finance Manager, to enter the discussions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. Item 5.4, the LIP report for May. With this report, we're seeking endorsement for the projects that are listed in the report. We'll also note that we have a late addition to the listing, and there are 3 additional projects that will be tabled today. Council are being requested to consider the 14 projects listed in attachment 1 plus the 3 additional projects. The second attachment of the report also contains 3 projects where there have been amendments to include greater scope and costs than were originally approved, and the dates and the amounts of the original approval are also included in the report. I'm happy to take any questions you may have on the report.
Thank you, Caroline. Councillors, are there any questions for Caroline at all? Councillor Stamp?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just the 3 additional ones. Can we
They'll be in the motion
Okay,
that
that's
we're
fine.
just putting
Thank
up
you.
on the board very shortly. If I could get that to happen. So we've got the 3 additional ones there for Division 10, 2 and 2. Can those councillors just check to make sure that that's correct? Yeah. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Heremiah?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to confirm that council officers support these LIP projects that have been added.
Thank you. Can I put... Sorry, Councillor Heremiah, can you turn your phone?
Thank you. Can council officers please confirm whether or not they support or oppose the funding of these 3 new projects? Thank you.
Caroline,
As I understand, the paperwork for the support of these projects has been received from Finance Branch.
thank you. Councillor Heremiah, has that answered your question? Awesome, thank you. There's a motion on the board, councillors. Do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Lane has moved it. Councillor Fraser has seconded it. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 5.5, Financial Performance Report, March 2023. Ms Bugg, would you like to enter into discussions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The March report is a quarterly report, so it contains a bit more information than you would normally see in our monthly report. I'd like to speak to the following points. There are no new risks identified at the end of March. The weather risk that had been identified for the wet season will be removed shortly. The upside of this risk not materialising is that the delivery branches have been able to continue to focus on capital delivery. This is generally the area that is impacted when we do experience wet weather, as there is a need to clean up after an event. The operating surplus at the end of March is running above budget. It's at $16.345 million and predominantly driven by revenue. The drivers of the revenue variance have been identified previously and are predominantly from the Logan Water variances in water usage and private works. Expenditure, again, no great change in this space. The organisation continues to feel the pricing pressures, particularly in higher costs. There continues to be a lag in employee costs against budget. However, branches are in many instances using these funds to support supernumerary roles where those positions are not being able to be filled on an ongoing basis. The indicators are all tracking well, and just noting that in the March quarter we saw an additional 1,133 new assessment added to rateable properties. And for a bit of context, we do budget approximately 2,500 new properties each year in that growth space. There haven't been any major changes to the pattern of LIP expenditure, and the finance team are working closely with delivery branches to ensure that we're working to the new policy in that space. Rates and charges, we do continue to trend very well in the collection of rates and charges. We are, though, preparing for any uptick in residents experiencing hardships. We're hoping that won't be the case. However, with the increased cost of living, we feel that the payment rates could become an issue for an increasing number of residents, so we will ensure that they are aware of our hardship policy.
Thank you, Caroline. Councillors, is there any questions? No? Yes, Councillor Lane.
Carolyn, with the cost of doing business, how much has that risen for council in the last financial year? Do you have an estimate or an amount?
Yes, we have tracked our costs of doing business, and we believe that it's in that 10%, around that 10% mark, increase 1 year on last year, this year on last year.
Yep, so the actual cost to council has risen by 10%, and for the people that are on that fringe of, struggling with payments, we're doing a compassionate process of how we work with that.
Yes, so we have a hardship policy which allows residents to call our team in finance and negotiate a repayment schedule that will fit within what they can afford. But we also aim not to allow them to get further in debt, so that it's to bring them back to a manageable position.
And the pensioner rebates, that's a substantial amount of savings off the cost of rates, is that correct?
That's correct. So if you're eligible for that pension remission, it depends on whether you have a full remission or a part remission, but it is up to about $390 for a full remission.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Lane, for your questions. Overall, council is just like any other business. We're feeling the increase of costs, the labour. We're just like every other business. We're trying to balance the books as much as we can, and obviously the budget is coming up, and we're trying to be mindful of our residents out there and how much they're struggling. And I do know that the team do an amazing job when it comes to those hardship cases. So thank you for your question, Councillor Lane. Councillors, there's a motion up on the board to receive the report. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Lane. Councillor Wilcox has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously, including Councillor Paransky. Thank you. Caroline, is there any general business for Caroline today, councillors? No? Caroline, do you have any for us?
Not today, thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much for attending. Thank you. Councillors, we'll move on to item 5.6, the Audit and Risk Committee meeting. This is my favourite report. Anita, it's over to you.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you through the chair. Nice to know this is your favourite report. The first report I'm presenting today relates to the meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee held on 29 March 2023. The report provides a summary for councillors of the matters reviewed by the committee at that meeting and satisfies the requirement of section 211 of the Local Government Regulation. I would foreshadow out of those that the Audit and Risk Committee considered amendments to the next iteration of Council's Risk and Compliance Framework. We're just tidying that up at the moment, taking into account feedback both from the Audit and Risk Committee and our executive leadership team, tidying that up, and I would foreshadow that we'll be presenting that to Council at the City Governance meeting next month. Other than that, happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you, Anita. I'd just like to say to the councillors that Councillor Fraser and I do go to those meetings, and if you have any questions, you can send them our way, or you're more than welcome to attend. I have Councillor Raven and Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Apologies for not sending the question through earlier. Happy for you to write the answer offline. In there, it said that ELT wanted more oversight of the internal auditing process. Can we have an explanation for what triggered that desire?
I think that's part of the risk maturation of the organisation. So essentially what that means is that traditionally directors alone have signed off on scopes, terms of reference, and then final reports for our audit and risk. So as the sort of operational level, the process we now have is to take those documents in draft to ELT so that each of the directors have the opportunity to consider it, even though it might be one that sits in Robert's portfolio, so that all the directors can have oversight of that. So I see it as a good news story rather than anything triggering it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raven. Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I just want to mention I went to the last meeting and it was actually really interesting to get a bit more of an insight into what's happening. The other question I had was, of the outstanding item audit actions, how many are likely to be completed in the next quarter? Do we know how they're trending?
I don't. I can get that information for you. We're just collating that information now, so probably be another couple of weeks before I could give you an indication.
Would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. We've got the motion up on the board. Do I have a... Councillor Fraser has passed that motion. Is there a seconder? Mayor Power. All those in favour, please raise your hand, noting that Councillor Wilcox just coming in and Councillor Koransky has voted yes. That has been carried. Thank you very much. Anita, we'll move on to the next one. Is 5.7, Concession Policy Amendments, May 2023. Please enter the discussions.
Thanks, and through the Chair, this report proposes amendments to 3 policies which provide concessions from rates and charges, and the repeal of one policy being the Community Services Obligation Policy. At the outset, the policies have been reviewed with a view to making them easier to understand for members of our community and also to administer the policies. So the 3 policies being proposed for amendment are the Pensioner Concessions Policy, which provides concessions to our pensioners from both general rates and also from our wheelie bin charges, so that's a waste charge. We then have the policy, it's called the Waste Concession Policy, and that applies to our community organisations and charities and allows them to apply for concessions from waste disposal charges. And we then also have the Concealed Water Leak Policy, which provides for some remissions in the event of a water leak. Mike's here in the room, but a water leak unknown at the time. So obviously I've got Mike in the room to be able to answer any technical questions on concealed water leaks. In terms of the community service obligations, it's an unusual statutory provision, which means that, and it applies in respect of our commercial business units. So the effect of the community service obligations is that where council makes a decision to provide a concession to a particular group and we ask our commercial business units to provide that concession, then council keeps our commercial business unit whole for that, and the difference constitutes the community service obligation. Now that's provided for in the legislation, and therefore a policy which simply restates that is not necessary. I would be happy to take any questions in respect of the policies themselves, and I note that I have Carolyn Bugg here on the pensioners. I have Michelle Griffin available to answer any questions on the community organisation remissions, and I've got Mike to answer any questions on the concealed water leaks.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you, team, for coming in. I have Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In regard to the pensioner concession policy, so this is in regards to your rates notice and the concession. Where I can't find it in this, but I have been shown somewhere that if a pensioner makes an application, they've got to wait for some time for that to come into effect. I think it's 2 rate notices.
Caroline, would you like to enter the discussion?
Thank you, Chair. When we receive an application for a resident for a pensioner remission, we check the eligibility first. If the application is midway through a quarter, but the pensioner was eligible or entitled to that remission concession for the full quarter, we will backdate it to the start of that quarter. However, if at the time or the date of application, the pensioner was not entitled to the remission concession for that quarter, we will apply it at the next quarter.
Sorry, so they'll only miss out on the 1 quarter or the pro rata of that quarter.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any further questions? Okay, councillors, we've got a motion up on the board. Is there a mover for that motion? Councillor Lane has moved it. Mr. Mayor, you happy to second it? Yep. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously, including Councillor Karansky. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 5.8, councillor expenses to 26th of April 2023. Anita, would you like to enter the discussions, please?
Thank you, Councillor Murphy, and through the Chair. This is the second of the quarterly reports presented to councillors under the Councillor Expenses and Facilities Policy. It outlines the total expenditure of councillors under that policy year to date, and I note that all expenditure currently remains under budget. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, councillors? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I saw in the Courier Mail a month ago or more that I spent about $50,000 on a trip to America going first class. Where would that be? Would that be in here if I did that?
That would depend on how that was allocated in our finances. So my understanding is that that was as part of the ComSec, and
That's
so
correct.
as part of your role. So that
Yep.
is a fee actually absorbed by the organisation and not under this policy. So the
Right.
policy provides that those costs are met by the organisation because of your role as mayor. So it wouldn't appear in this report. However, those costs will appear in the annual report.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before you move on, do you just want to clarify with regards to your trip?
Well,
We
I'm
don't
just
want any great
relating to the
stories.
fact that it was reported that we flew first class, and I think it was $500,000 for the council mayors to take off. I do know that I don't believe that this council was hit up for any money. I was part of the organisation, but I just want to clarify that because I did make a register of interest of payment, so I just wanted to clarify that, just for the local reporter.
For the record, yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Lane.
Thanks very much, and thanks for bringing this report forward, Anita. Can you explain what the divisional expenses would be? I note that I haven't claimed any other item on councillor expenses, but it does have $7,709.94 against divisional expenses. Could you explain what they would be?
Councillor, they would be things like if you had mobile office expenses or some
Okay.
printing and postage charges.
So it would be wholly and solely printing and postage charges in the case of Division 2 because I don't charge for mobile offices or cups of coffee.
So, Councillor, I think I've circulated more detailed information if there's any questions about what they are, but that's the type of expense that we would see in divisional expenses.
No worries, I just wanted to clarify that I don't claim anything against these expenses other than postage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Is there any further questions? No, there is a motion up on the board. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Lane and Councillor Bannon has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Councillor Karansky, can you let us know? You're in favour. Can you just leave your hands up? That has been carried all bar Councillor Stamp. How do you vote?
Madam Chair, I'm abstaining from this one because there's an amount under professional memberships in Division 10, which I notified the branch about in the start of May, but it's still showing in Division 10 instead of Division 11. So I just wanted to note the fact that it's not reflected in this report, though I believe it has been changed in the actual system.
I'm sorry, Councillor Stamp, can you please say that again?
Sorry, so under Division 10, professional memberships, there's an amount of 362.73. I advised,
Yes.
yeah, so it hasn't been changed in this report. but-
Anita, have you noted that?
It has been corrected in the system, and apologies, Councillor Stemp, there was a timing issue in terms of the agenda.
Thank you. I'm glad to see that has been altered. Thank you very much. Has anybody got any general business for the corporate governance manager today? No? Have you got any for us?
Not today, thanks, Councillor.
Thank you very much. I now move on to item 5.9, the apprentice and trainees direct hire model recommendations. I believe we've got Kim and Jeff Watson to enter into the discussion. Welcome today.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, councillors. Today I'll provide a report with a recommendation for committee to endorse the apprentice and trainee direct hire model. For context, last year and following the executive leadership team and council endorsement, the People and Culture branch commenced a 12-month pilot program exploring the viability of council directly hiring apprentices and trainees. The pilot was initiated to assess a possible alternative to our traditional hosted hire model using external group training organisations to deliver recruitment and management services for our trainees and apprentices. We are pleased to note that the pilot has highlighted a number of benefits for our direct hire cohort, including increasing levels of engagement and belonging, increased financial subsidies that are available to council, although these funding sources are not guaranteed in the future, a consistent level of employment conditions to other council staff, a single point of contact and level of communication to their supervisor. However, other considerations and learnings have also emerged for council, including increased life cycle costs associated with the direct hire model, including resource, administration and employment costs, reduced sponsorship from our external stakeholders, and an increased employment-related risk profile to council. This report presented today provides an outcome of the comparison of financial and resourcing impacts between a direct hire and hosted hire trainee and apprentice model. We are seeking that the report be noted, and as a result of the learnings gained through undertaking this pilot, that the implementation of a direct hire model of engagement that maintains no more than 35 appointments, as detailed in the report titled Apprentice and Trainee Direct Hire Model Recommendation, be endorsed. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Councillor Lane.
Boom, boom, short and sharp, well done. I think for any young person wanting a career with council or a career in a trade, this is a great step forward. There's certainty around this, and as you say, morale and future directions and training opportunities are actually enlarged. So thank you very much for this report.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. I couldn't agree more. Councillors, any further questions? No? There is a motion up on the board. Is someone happy to move that? Councillor Lane. Councillor Raven has seconded it. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously, noting that Councillor Kransky is in favour as well. Thank you. Before we go, have anybody got any general business for Jeff at all? And do you have any for us? Any general business for us?
No general business.
Excellent. You may go back to work. Thank you very much. We're moving on to item 5.10, the City of Logan Customer Charter. I understand that Mr. Leo Clayton is away today because he has COVID. And Kim Bryan is going to present the report. Ms. Kim, could you please enter the discussions?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Mayor and councillors. I'm very pleased to present consideration for adoption of the City of Logan Customer Charter. This commitment for our customers puts them at the centre of the way we deliver our services. The Customer Charter serves as a guide for council staff to follow in their interactions with customers and helps to establish clear expectations for both council and customers. The new Customer Charter is broader than our last charter and expands definitions on how we will deliver our community service commitments. and provides more information regarding rights and mechanisms for feedbacks and complaints. The new Customer Charter defines who our customers are, demonstrates our focus and how we will deliver customer service, seeks to improve the efficiency of our customer service by setting out customer service standards. It will increase our accountability to customers and will also establish the rights and responsibilities for customers who engage with council services. It has been developed, including internal and external feedback, and extensive community engagement was undertaken as part of the development of the customer experience strategy. We value our role in serving the community, and we're proud of our record to date, but we wish to provide even higher customer service, and we hope that this Customer Charter takes us part of the way to doing that. Thank you for your time in considering this report.
Thank you, Kim. Councillors, do I have any questions? Councillor Bannon.
Good job. Really excited to see this one. Happy to move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bannon. We'll put the motion up on the board. Councillor Bannon has moved the motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Raven. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That is being carried, noting Councillor Lane is out of the room and Councillor Kransky has voted for. Thank you very much. Kim, do you have any general business for us?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillors, do we have any general business for Kim? None? Thank you and have a great day. Thank you, councillors. We're just going to get ready for item 5.11, the confidential report, the CoLab Innovation Growth Hub Strategy Review. I just think we're waiting for some councillor staff, but just bear with us for a second. Thank you. Just noting Councillor Wilcox is leaving. I believe she's off to some conferences in sunny Victoria. Have fun. Hello and welcome. How are you today? Thank you. So, councillors, we're just going to go into item 5.11, the confidential report, CoLab Innovation Growth Strategic Review. I note that this item 5.11 is confidential. A proposed resolution to move this matter is displayed on the screen. Do any councillors wish to move this into confidential? Councillor Raven has. Is there a seconder? Councillor Stamp. I open the floor to vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. That has been carried unanimously, including Councillor Kransky. Please be advised that this meeting is now in a confidential session and therefore the live streaming of this meeting will be suspended until the meeting reopens. Councillors, please note that we are now in closed session and back in open session and the live streaming is to recommence. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors, for your time on this particular report. It has been a largely debated report today, and thank you, Dr. Scott Burke and team, for coming today and answering our questions. So, firstly, we have to just move the PowerPoint presentation that was presented in the confidential section. Councillor Raven has moved it. Councillor Hall has seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Councillors, now we're going to put up an amended motion on the board that we have all seen, and we'll put this to the floor. Is there a mover for that motion? Councillor Bannon has moved the motion. Councillor Raven has seconded the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That has been passed. Thank you. Can we please go around and vote how we voted, please, Mr. Mayor?
I abstained on the grounds that I believe that it should go through the process of going through Treasury, as our other beneficial enterprise did, and I'll be stating that.
Thank you. Councillor Lane?
For.
Councillor Russell?
For.
Raven?
For.
Hall?
For. For.
Jeremiah?
Abstain.
Councillor Stamp?
For.
Councillor Wilcox is away. Councillor Karansky?
Against.
And I'm for. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Burke. Does anybody have any general business for Dr. Burke? No? Do you have any for us?
I do not. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. Does anybody have any general business for Robert today? Robert, do you have any for us? No, thank you. You think it's long enough. Thank you. Councillors, that concludes today's agenda. Does anybody have anybody else? No, thank you. I declare the meeting of Governance Committee dated the 17th of May concluded at 12:24 p.m. Thank you very much.